Hello and welcome back. Welcome back to the AI Guild live stream every Monday and every Tuesday at 12:30 Central European Time. Today's topic is data careers, the next 10 years ahead. What I would like to do with you is over the next weeks have a discussion about what we think are the key drivers of data careers in the next 10 years. Including why actually I think that the coming 10 years are the golden age of data careers. So this is the title of this series. And the golden age of data careers really means that it's been about 15 years since the notion of the data profession has come into existence. The data scientist as that sexiest job of the 21st century. That was like 12 years ago in 2012. Since then, the profession has developed. We've seen roles become more specific. So we have the data scientist, the data analyst. We now have analytics engineering, not just data engineering. We've seen the rise of Gen AI over the past years. So the field is spread out. We have clear professional roles. People are becoming more domain specific in what they do and what they know. And all of this means that the field is growing, that the number of data professionals has been growing rapidly and will continue to grow. And it's those 10 years coming up ahead of us where data careers will be made, where everybody has the opportunity to move ahead in the field, move to be a senior, move on to be a lead, become a director, possibly become a chief data officer. And therefore, this is the golden age of data careers in the sense that these careers are being made now, they'll be made over the coming years. And then at some point, of course, there's a flip side to this. The field will become saturated and it will be harder to have a career. So I'm also here to tell you that you would like a data career, have it now. So this is what we're going to be talking about. And we're also going to be talking about where the field is and where it's going. And there's certain topics over the next weeks that I would like to share with you. And today I'm looking in the comments and in the feedback, personal message, whatever way you want to reach out for further topics that you would like to see discussed here. So the ones that I'm going to be looking at is, first of all, there's no lack of talent any longer. Like 10 years ago, this was a big thing. You will all remember all these online courses. Many of us took them. There were these boot camps. A lot of people started their career that way. The university started creating courses. Actually, at some point, there were, like every university was trying to have some sort of data course. So there's no longer a lack of talent. Talent is plenty. It's abundant. There's lots of young people that are perhaps native to AI already. So there's no lack of talent, and we need to look at the consequences of that if you want to start your career and for the early days of your career. Then the second point I would like to talk about is that it's still all about the data. It's all about the data in the sense that you need to be data literate. You actually need to get intimate with data, and it's in the data, not the algorithms. There were some famous examples and mishaps of this, including a company once known as Element AI, founded by some people that really were at the forefront of developments in machine learning and deep learning, including one of the godfathers of deep learning. But Element AI ultimately wasn't successful and was sold because it focused on the algorithms. It thought that the algorithms were the solution, and they had to learn that it isn't. It's the data. It's the data, stupid. It's all about the data. So that's number two. The third one is my pet peeve, my favorite topic. This has to do with the fact that I'm talking to you from Central Europe, and that I've, for most of my professional life now, have worked in Germany. And in Germany, they have this notion of digitization, Digitalisierung, and it's really a bad choice. So we're going to be talking about why companies, professionals, whole countries that get stuck in this idea that it's all about digitizing some sort of digital transformation, get it wrong, don't understand why it's all about the data, fail to build systems and applications that actually drive the collection and use of data, and keep falling behind in the race. Number three. Number four, you actually need use cases in production. Now, this is no longer any sort of novelty. It's been there for a number of years. There's this urban legend that sort of says that 8 out of 10 use cases never go to production. But it's clear to everybody, I think, that you need use cases in production. And I'm here to say that this is what your career rides on. So you need to be in companies and in teams that have use cases in production, preferably actually before you join them, they already have use cases in production, because this is how you learn, this is how you move on, this is how you grow your expertise. So use cases in production, number 4. Number 5, I call that 3 people are not a data team. Of course, we all know that now. This is really evident to everybody that you need data teams, that data teams need to be fairly large, that they're increasingly specialized. So 3 people are not a data team. But for too many companies, in too many places, in too many departments, the data teams still are unsubstantial, inconsequential, not able to do their job, simply because there is a lack of expertise. So the lack of competence in Europe is problematic, deeply problematic, because it prevents companies from getting use cases into production and keeping them there. So 3 people are not a data team. On to the next one. So number 6, you need an infrastructure for multimodal data processing. Now, one of the really great things about Gen AI is that it drives this general AI literacy, that now anybody can use it. And actually, I hope you're using it. We're all using it. You can test out the various solutions that there are and contrast and compare. It's getting cheaper by the day. Smaller companies can now do AI. All wonderful. But nevertheless, if you want to have your use cases in production and keep them there, you need an infrastructure that you invest in, that you scale up, and that you keep there, and that you have your pipelines that drive your use cases in production. Even when you're doing Gen AI, you need that. Number 7. So you want to have that data career, you need to be the go-to expert. So data roles are evolving by industry and by function. And then the question is, what are you? Are you the data scientist for fraud detection? Now, data scientist for fraud detection actually means that if you're a specialist for fraud detection, there are even a couple of industries that you can work in, right? So fraud detection is obviously something in finance, but fraud detection is also something in e-commerce, for example. So there's kind of like 2 industries, possibly a third and a fourth one that you can work with if you're a data scientist for fraud detection. If you're a computer vision expert for autonomous mobility, you are for autonomous mobility, and then the autonomous mobility might have 4 wheels or 3 wheels or 2 wheels, or maybe it's going on a track, all fine. But this is where you're having your career, right? You're a computer vision expert for autonomous mobility. So this is what's happening. And I think most of us are already aware of this. And then you need to think through the consequences of this for your career and your career progression. Number 8 that I want to look at is your company must embrace data literacy. So what does that actually mean? That means, in my experience, there's still way too many companies that aren't data literate. So one way of actually seeing that is if your chief data officer or the person that performs the function of the chief data officer actually isn't fluent in Python. If they're not fluent in Python, your company has not embraced data literacy. Otherwise, they would make sure that the leadership in the data team is fluent in Python and has that experience with data. But it's more than that, right? It's also the question of whether do you have a data infrastructure that everybody's using and that also everybody can contribute to. And people, in whatever they do they actually understand how they're contributing to enhancing the data stock, the data infrastructure of the company? Are they able to use it? Does it help them in their job? Are they literate enough to do their job better or different? This is a longer journey. Data literacy is a longer journey, and we'll see which companies embrace that. But I think your company must embrace that. Otherwise, they're not likely to be in the driving seat in the data economy. I return back to use cases in production. So number 9 here is that getting use cases in production is actually a hard problem. So there's this urban legend that 8 out of 10 don't make it to production, possibly even 9 out of 10. The stories being told vary on this. The anecdotal evidence, to my mind, simply points to the fact that it is indeed a hard problem. So getting use cases to production and keeping them there is hard. It's hard technically because you really need a sound infrastructure. You need to test, you need to tweak, you need to keep at it until it is in production. And only then will you find out whether your assumptions about the business value of your use case were actually really correct, whether it is making money or saving money. And of course, for it to stay into production, you need to be solving some sort of business problem effectively, right? That also makes it a hard problem because there's always kind of like three elements to this. So first of all, does your company have the basic competence to get the stuff in production and keep it there? Then two, have you got everything together? That actually means in terms of the process that you are successful, it goes to production. And then three, are you data and business savvy enough so that what you're doing actually makes a difference and there's a business outcome so that the company has a good reason to keep that use case in production rather than shutting it down because it doesn't make any difference. And then, think about some of the large German automotive countries or companies over the past years that have invested very heavily in software, only to somehow repeatedly actually abandon what they're doing, not continuing with it because it wasn't working out, because they discovered, actually we lack competence. What we're doing in production isn't really working out, and the business value of this, at least vis-a-vis the competition, is too small. So they reorganize, they outsource, they buy in, they do various kinds of things. And you can see with that this is a hard problem. And going back to my point number 3, so if you're dealing with a company that thinks that digitization is what needs to be done, they're probably not going to be successful. It's a harder problem than that. And then my final point that I would like to bring forward over the coming weeks is that businesses and regulators need leaders they trust. So they need leaders they trust in the sense that they need to be able to trust their competence. They need to really understand what is going on. And they need to believe that they can do two things, right? One is get the use cases to production, keep them there, so be successful technically. But two, they also need to believe that in a wider sense, they know what they're doing professionally and business-wise, so that the outcome over time will add to the business value of the whole thing. So my number 10 is businesses and regulators need leaders they trust. And this is, of course, going back to the beginning, data careers in the 2020s, so I'm wrapping it up in terms of where I would like to go. That over the coming 10 years, this really is the question. Can you step up? Can you be one of those leaders that businesses and regulators trust, that they will drive the company in terms of data, that they will drive the business to be more successful, and that they will be implementing data analytics, machine learning, Gen AI to the benefit of the company and its customers or clients? So that's the next element that needs to be there. So these are the 10 points that I would like to discuss over the next weeks. I'll be back every Monday talking about this. You are welcome to reach out and tell me more topics that you have or ask any sort of questions. I will pick this up and make this as interactive as possible. And every Monday will be dedicated precisely to these data careers. And then every Tuesday, I mentioned at the beginning, so every Tuesday at 12:30, I will also go online and actually discuss a specific competency profile of a practitioner, anonymously, obviously, but discuss a competency profile and point out what I see in these competency profiles and how these people are having and enjoying a data career and what I think they're getting right. So you have these two opportunities to join the discussion on Monday and Tuesday at 12:30 Central European Time. And I will see you next tomorrow.